Hello everyone, welcome to today's live IELTS class. My name is Adrian and I am streaming to you live from beautiful Budapest, capital city of Hungary, Central Europe. Good to see so many people joining in nice and early. Hi Ithong, hi Jeffrey, good to see you as well. Yep, 72 to 80 hours or so has passed for sure. My trip was good, thanks for asking. I spent a little time on the lake with the family. It was a nice little R&R, rest and relaxation. Hi, Arcana. Good to see another member in the class. Hobart. All right, so we are living in August 14th, 2018. We're continuing with our online course in these live sessions. This online course is actually an interactive self-study course taken from our website. And we started a little over a week ago discussing some of the key strategies for IELTS. Hopefully those of you who have seen these videos are practicing critical thinking, paraphrasing, and visualization throughout your studies, getting ready for that. Thanks, Arcana, for that comment. We did just release a brand new IELTS sample speaking interview video with a Vietnamese candidate, aka Daniel, who is a former client of ours, and he did an excellent job. So we decided to do a video with him. Definitely lots of great advice there and a good example for you. So make sure you check out that video if you haven't seen it already. Hopefully that kept you a little bit busy while I was away. Again, our materials are coming from our websites for academic IELTS. I've already put it up here as well, so you can see it anytime, www.aehelp.com. That's actually academicenglishhelp.com. And if you're studying for general IELTS, definitely do check us out at www.gieltshelp.com. Manveer, I'm very, very happy that your friend was able to get 7.5 band with our help. We definitely got a lot of emails in the last couple of weeks of students who gave us feedback and let us know that they got some really great scores on their IELTS exams with our materials. So we're very, very happy about that, and we're very happy that our students, for the most part, are very successful. If you have an Android phone, you can also download our app or tablet. Go to your Google Play Store, look for our logo, Academic IELTS Help. All right, so again, our materials are available on our websites. Lots and lots of videos, 6 original practice exams, lots of audio, and an interactive course that you can use on your tablet, phone, and computer. Here's a quick reminder of our current schedule. Our live streaming is according to Central European summertime, as it is summer here, nice and hot weather, 35 degrees, sunny. It's actually from August 14th. Sorry about that little typo there. So today we're looking at, again, course part 6. Tomorrow we're going to do a member chat. Members get the option to request classes and get access to our exams that we use in these lessons. It says recommendation here, but we will be doing a pie chart, members. So we'll be doing a pie chart tomorrow. One of you members requested that I do a pie chart task 1 class, so we'll do that. Then we continue with our course, and then another interlude with members. Again, full online course part 8 on the 18th. No class on the 19th, 20th, and then the remainder of this schedule, once we get to this point, I'll put up for August. All right, Preeti, our full online course is actually valid for 4 months. It's lots of time to finish our materials. It's designed to be finished in about 60 to 90 days comfortably, a couple hours a day. But if you run out of time, if you're not able to finish, just send us an email and we'll give you an extension. That's just to keep our database up to date and our servers running smoothly. Okay. For most of you who have an intermediate level of English, you should be studying IELTS at least 2 months before you sit the exam, and our course is kind of designed for that time period. So let's jump into today's lesson. Here we go. So today we are continuing with the specific question types for the listening section in IELTS. Again, just a review from last class. There are 9 kinds of questions that you can see in the IELTS listening. We have strategies and examples for all of these. We talked about type 1, 2, and 3. I believe we covered multiple choice, matching sentence endings, and I can't remember the third one, but if you look at the previous class, then you'll find those ones for sure, okay? So today we're going to be continuing now with listening question type 4. This is just what we use, type 4, but there's no actual sequence to these types of questions. As I mentioned in the previous class, you probably will see 5, 6, maybe 7 different kinds of questions in one IELTS exam, but it's good to be familiar with all 9 different kinds because you just don't know which ones you will see, okay? So make sure you cover all of them. Let's start with type 4, sentence completion, okay? This is somewhat similar to paragraph completion type questions. It's just instead of seeing it in one big block, the sentences are separated into individual question sentences. You'll see an example in these ones. So the first strategy here, when you're looking at these sentences, pay really close attention to the word form that's missing in the sentence, okay? So if you have, let me just jump a slide here. Okay, so here you have an example of sentence completion. Sentence completion words are often, the question will say 2 or 3 words. Pay attention, always pay attention to the instructions. If it's 2 words, it's very likely that at least 1 or 2 of these will be 2 words. No guarantee, it could just be 1 word. So here you see the manufacturers of the Titanic believed it was, and then blank here. Now, based on English grammar, what type of word or what word form do you think comes into the blank here? So do you think it's a noun, a verb, an adverb, an adjective, or a combination of those? So what do you think is the missing word form? You don't think about the word, we'll listen for that, but what is the missing word form? Do you think it's a verb or an adjective? So some of you are saying it's got to be it's got to be an adjective of some sort. Yeah, that's probably a good guess. Verb, probably not, because we already have a verb here, so it's unlikely. Or maybe a noun. So yeah, a noun is a good guess. An adjective is a good guess. Maybe an adjective and a noun is a good guess. Okay, so that's what you're paying attention for. If you're putting a verb in here, you're probably, actually, you're getting the answer wrong. So it's either an adjective plus noun or maybe just a noun, okay, that's going in there. Let's have a look at number 2. The engine's power was equivalent to approximately blank cars. So what do you think is coming in here? Okay. What do you think is coming into space number 2? A verb, noun, adjective, adverb. What's your guess? Okay, Jeffrey says something even more specific. He says it's probably a number. Yeah, so here you can see that it's probably an adjective because we have the noun here. So most likely it's going to be an adjective, and even more specifically, you can infer that it's going to be some kind of a number, okay? So you definitely need to pay attention and make sure that you're clear on what comes into the blank, what kind of a word. The more specifically you can guess, like this is an adjective number, this is probably an adjective noun, the higher the chance that you get that one right, okay? So pay attention to that form of the word, all right? Now, let's have a look at another strategy before we listen for these kinds of questions. By the way, this sentence completion is a very popular type of question on the IELTS listening, as well as the reading. I don't think I have ever seen an IELTS exam that does not have this type of question in both the listening and the reading. So definitely be familiar with this one, okay? Now, the other strategy here that's very important is read the sentence with the word once you've put it in there, okay? A lot of students don't do this. So when you put some kind of word in here, like the manufacturers of the Titanic believed it was awesome, okay? We don't know if that's the answer yet, but let's just imagine that for a second that's the correct answer. The manufacturers of the Titanic believed it was awesome. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. Make sure to read the full sentence with your answer to see if it is correct. A lot of students, what they do is they just put the word in there, then they transfer it to the answer sheet at the end, and they don't read the sentence. And if they were to read the sentence, they can often catch a silly mistake or realize that, wait a second, that word does not make any sense at all. So if you don't have time to read the sentence with your answer while you're doing the actual listening, that can be very tricky, then make sure that in that 10 minutes to transfer your answers to the answer sheet at the end of the listening, in that last 10 minutes after section 4, you read these fill-in-the-blank type questions, okay, to catch those marks and make sure that they're correct. All right, so let's listen to this audio and then see how this works a little bit more, okay? So, just listen, all right? Again, this is from your interactive course. Here we go.
The Titanic was an enormous ship. The makers called it unsinkable. From end to end, it measured approximately the length of 3 football pitches. It had the capacity to carry over 3,500 passengers, as well as the over 800 people on the crew of the ship. Despite its massive size and impressive capacity, the Titanic was able to cruise at a speed of 40 knots. This was in large part due to the 59,000 horsepower engine. Just how much is 59,000 HP? Well, in literal terms, it's like being pulled by 59,000 horses. More realistically, it's the equivalent power of 500 cars. On the maiden voyage that left Southampton, England, on the 10th of April 1912, there were 1,343 passengers.
All right, so let's put in the answers. Can anybody tell me the answer for number 1 and 2? I believe I already saw a couple people putting it up there. So Arcana says, well, that first one, the word is unsinkable. Now, Arcana, make sure you use a small n there, or all capitals. Okay, so the makers called it unsinkable, and it had the power of roughly 500 cars. Very good, Xiao Fuqin. I'm trying my best to pronounce some of the names, so my apologies if it's not correct. Naveen, definitely use the number, not the word, just to avoid mistakes. And it is 500 cars. So notice that in this case, it says no more than 2 words, but 1 word here is enough. Now, let's see which students are paying close attention to the listening and to the previous lessons as well. What did the audio actually say here? Did anybody catch that? So the audio didn't use this exact sentence. It used something a little bit different. Instead of manufacturers, so instead of this word here, the audio used a different word. Did anybody catch that one? Also, instead of this one, they used a different word as well. Did anybody catch that word? So always try to focus on that paraphrasing. Again, remember, and students who don't know this, that's right, Jubilant James. Good listening, good active listening. So instead of manufacturers, the speaker actually said the makers. And makers in this case is a synonym for manufacturers. Okay? Anybody catch what they said instead of believed? That was a good one, Jubilant James. I'm very proud that your active listening has improved to such levels. Anybody remember this one? It was not think, it was called it. Okay? So quite an interesting paraphrase, but a paraphrase nonetheless. The audio actually says the makers of the Titanic called it unsinkable. Okay? So that's your paraphrasing. That's just a quick reminder to always pay attention to paraphrasing. Write it down when you catch it. It will help improve your active listening, as I taught in previous classes in detail, and it's a very important part of studying for IELTS and university, because that's what happens in university. So your professor will give you a lecture, they'll say it's something like this audio, and then your midterm exam or final exam will have the question in this way. So you have to pair up your professor, your notes, and make sure that you can paraphrase there as well in school, not just on IELTS. Okay, good. Unsinkable. So yeah, the word un is the prefix. The prefix un means cannot. Okay, and sink, of course, means to go underwater or to submerge. And then you have the suffix able. Okay, so unsinkable. It's one word. Able means can't, like able, right, or can. So it's kind of a funny one when you look at it this way, but it's cannot sink can, okay? So it basically means it cannot be sunk, okay? That's the simple way to say it. Definitely a good idea to learn English prefix and root and suffix word structure before you sit the IELTS exam. It can really help you a lot. I'll get into more detail on that in future classes, okay? So pay attention to that. That's just a little side note. I'm giving you some extra tidbits as I'm presenting these live classes to you, okay? So unsinkable, 500 cars. The goal here is to pay attention to these strategies, okay? The goal here, so you're asking me, what is this helping you? This is helping you to realize what kind of questions to expect, what format of questions to expect on IELTS, and how to approach these questions effectively. Okay, so in the live course, as I've mentioned before, you always have these quizzes. These are interactive quizzes that you can use on your phone or your tablet. We don't have that option in the PowerPoint live class, so we'll just skip through that. And then look at the answer keys here. So answer key for the first question. Again, there's the paraphrasing. The makers called it unsinkable, and that's your answer. And then here, the answer came from, it's the equivalent power of 500 cars. Now, for those of you who are studying the IELTS in a lot of detail, which is great, definitely don't forget to use the transcripts in the back of your book. At the end of our exam books, you have all of the audio scripts so you can find where the answers are coming from, okay? All right, awesome. Let's go nice and smoothly transition into the fifth type of question, which is flowchart completion, okay? A flowchart completion type question, I'll show you what that looks like before going over the strategies. So this is what it looks like here, okay? A flowchart type question is basically where you have a sentence or a phrase with a blank. You have to fill in this case, no more than 2 words. And then it's sequential, it's chronological, okay? So this type of question follows the order of the speaker. Now, you have to be very careful, of course, because, again, there's paraphrasing, so don't expect to hear the exact same words from the audio as what you see on the paper, all right? Equivalent means equal to, Swati, means it's the same as, okay? So 10,000 horses pulling a house is the same as 500 cars pulling a house, okay? All right, so before we listen to that question type, let's look at some of these strategies here. Number 1 is visualization. Okay, visualization for this type of question is very, very useful, especially if you're familiar with the information. So visualizing the sequence can really help you. Let me show you what I mean. So here it says, extremely calm, something crashed against icebergs. Okay, so it's calm, it's peaceful, it's quiet. So I'm visualizing being on the ocean. Hopefully all of you realize Titanic is that very famous boat, cruise ship that sank off of New Brunswick, I believe, or no, Newfoundland in 1912. So it's extremely calm, so it's not a stormy night, it's a calm night. The Titanic hits the iceberg, okay, so you imagine this nice big boat that's got these smokestacks. It's a big cruise ship, lots of windows. Again, pay attention to details. Visualize, imagine you are standing on this boat. You're happy at the moment, but then boom, there's that iceberg and the boat is cracking and breaking open. So you're visualizing that. So something left the ship half full. So there's something leaving half full. So there you are jumping off the boat. So just visualize as much as possible. And 1,523 people die, most of them from the freezing cold temperatures of the Atlantic Ocean. So there you see these poor people who are no longer with us floating in the water. A devastating image indeed, but by visualizing that, when you review the question, it will help you to fill in those blanks, okay? So remember that seeing the information that's given to you in the flowchart will definitely help you to get the right answers or catch them at the right time, all right? Keep that in mind. Okay, we'll jump to strategy 2 here in a moment. I'm just going to get this back for you. There we go. All right, so let's go back to strategy 2. Strategy 2, very, very important for these flowchart completion types, especially if you get them in section 4 of listening. Section 4 of listening is, of course, a little bit higher level, faster. So you really have to pay attention to the first part of this question. Usually the IELTS is kind of nice. They will say exactly the same information as what you read for the very first part of the question so that the student knows, oh, here comes the answers, okay? So what I mean by this is this is a very, very important piece to be paying attention to. So please don't zone out and look up at the stars and think, oh yeah, here comes some English speaking and so on and so forth. When you see this kind of a question, really stay focused, really pay attention to hearing these words, because this will let you know that it's the start to this question and you have to get ready for this answer very quickly. If you miss this one, then what can happen to students, I've seen this before, is they suddenly realize that they're here and the speaker is saying the watertight doors, and then the student goes, oh my gosh, I totally missed this first part. What happened? I have no chance. Don't worry, okay? In that case, don't worry. Then just focus from here and keep going. I'll explain what to do if that happens to you, okay? But the most important point is don't panic. If you miss this first part, definitely try not to miss this first expression, okay? Sometimes you'll even have a sentence before the first blank, so to try to get you ready for filling these in, okay? If you get confused and lost, it's very easy to miss the points for this kind of question, okay? All right. Aya will update that in the next release, okay? But you're right. We should probably emphasize that as being very important. Okay, this is just a rephrase, strategy 3 of what I just told you. So go with the audio, go with the flow, especially for this kind of question. If you miss an answer, don't worry about it. Keep going with the flow. You might be able to recover that answer later, but if you miss it, just don't freak out. Try not to get stuck on vocabulary for this kind of a question. If you don't understand a word, don't worry about it. Again, stay with the flow, okay? It's very, very important. All right, so now let's listen. Let's get these answers. We visualized it. Let's do our best, okay? So have your pencil paper ready. I'll play the audio for you, and then apply what I just told you when you're solving these answers.
The night of the 14th of April 1912, on her maiden voyage, the Titanic hit an iceberg. About 3 hours later, early morning the next day, the ship sank. The reasons for the sinking are numerous. First, the watertight doors, which were supposed to keep water out, didn't work properly. Second, the night of the 14th of April was incredibly calm on the water. Icebergs are easily spotted when there are waves crashing against them. On this night, there were no waves. The strength of the metal in the Titanic was not as it should have been. The metal became brittle in the freezing cold and was easily broken by the iceberg. Another big factor was the inability of the Titanic to turn quickly. Once the lookouts had spotted the iceberg, the captain ordered the ship turned, but it was too late. If the ship had been able to turn faster, it would have missed the iceberg. One of the biggest tragedies about the sinking was that there were not enough lifeboats for everyone on the ship. In addition to this, many of the lifeboats left the sinking vessel with less than half of the people they were designed to carry. For example, the first lifeboat off the Titanic left with only 27 of the allotted 65 passengers. This unfortunate occurrence can be attributed to panic on the part of the passengers and crew. One can only imagine the sheer terror on board the ship that early morning. 1,523 out of the 2,228 passengers and crew perished that morning. Most died from the near-freezing temperature of the Atlantic Ocean. Others drowned after being trapped in the lower decks.
All right, so very interesting, right? Notice something, that this information here and this information here actually came before this information. So they actually mentioned it here. Okay, now if a student is sitting in the IELTS, they might panic, and when they hear this, they go, oh my gosh, I missed this one and it's gone. Don't panic, because notice that this one actually came after. Now, where you actually have to put the answers like this and this, they will never be in reverse sequence. So notice how number 1 was definitely before number 2, okay? And that will always be the case. So where you actually have to put answers, you will always hear the right sequence. With this one, you heard it before. Now, if you hear it before, you still do not panic, okay? Because you're listening for this piece here. Okay, you're listening for this piece and this piece here, all right? These pieces can repeat. So you could have an IELTS listening where you hear this piece up here, and then you hear this one, and then you might actually hear this one again down here, maybe a paraphrase or maybe even a very similar sentence, okay? But the blanks, the answers will always be in the right sequence. So you'll never hear number 2's answer before number 1. If you hear that, that's a mistake, okay? So in this case, does that make sense, what I just said? I know that was a little bit, hi Manisha, good to see you in class. Does that make sense? That's an important piece of information that I just told you with this, and it can really save you from stressing out and panicking on the IELTS. Okay? So one more time, you could hear this one or this one twice. You could hear it up here before this or after, or both before and after, but you'll never hear these parts in reverse sequence, okay? Now, for those of you who said waves for number 1, you're correct. It's plural. We can count waves. If you just write wave, it's wrong. And then here it is lifeboats, and lifeboats is one word. And thank you, Diwash, and thank you, James, and thank you, Jobert Cinco, for confirming that that makes sense for you, okay? Lifeboats, again, you can write answers all capital. Just be careful. It's easier to make spelling mistakes that way, okay? For example, miss the A in boats, okay? If you do that, it will be wrong. Because it's many, again, it's a plural, so you have to have S. Lifeboats, correct. You'll get that right. Waves, you'll get that correct. If you write lifeboats as 2 words, I think they might give that one to you. It's very tricky. A lot of people, even native speakers, don't know that that's one word. So you have a good chance that they will give that to you. Now, let's imagine that you missed this first one because you hear this information, you're freaking out, you forget that this is still ahead of you and you don't pay attention, you're just waiting for this answer here. That's fine. When you go back to review your answers at the end of section 2, I believe this is a section 2 excerpt, you might be able to guess that know something against the icebergs. If you know that crash is used for waves, then you can probably guess waves for this one. Okay, so if you have good English skills, you should be able to even guess that this is waves, so don't panic if you miss an answer, okay? And if you don't get it, it's not the end of the world. Focus on getting the other answers. All right. Here we go. So again, in your online interactive course, you would have a quiz here. The quiz would walk you through these kinds of questions, so you have another chance to practice what you're learning. Here's the answer key. Again, it's waves. We don't need to listen again. And then here's the second one, lifeboats. Even in our PowerPoint, we have it as 2 words, although it is written as 1 word. And here we have the 6th type of question that you can see on IELTS. Any questions about these flowcharts? So before I start going into type number 6, any questions about these last 2 that I just showed you? Any clarification that's needed? Any apprehensions? This is your chance to ask me if you're not sure about something. I don't want to just blow through all of these different question types. In case you have questions, let me know, okay? No questions, James? All right. Anybody else? Well, if you have questions, just ask me anytime. I can always pop back. Let's look at table completion, okay? So with tables, your question looks like this. I'll show you. Here we go. The other way. So this is a table completion type question. You can see this on IELTS. Again, they'll have some instructions above, so no more than 1 word. So in this case, it's just 1. That's all you write is 1 word. Sometimes a number is okay as well, but you cannot write 2. And then here you have this table. Now, strategy number 1 from the previous slide is to visualize the categories. Okay, so tables always have column headings. Column headings are very important. In this case, if we look at our column headings, we see it says the group's task, and then when the task is completed. And then, of course, once we've looked at that, we realize, okay, this is some kind of a group project. That's what you should be visualizing, people working together on the same project, and then some kind of a schedule or calendar, some type of a deadline, okay? Here you have number 1, something about the project, which is today. Doing the project, okay, that's going to be tonight. That's given to you. It's clearly sequential. And then putting together the project. And here there's a missing date. So here, I know that I'm listening for a day or some kind of a date. Now, if I had to guess, so if I'm not even listening to the audio, I might even guess that if this is today, tonight, my logic tells me this could be tomorrow, okay? So if I miss it, I might be able to guess it, all right? But again, very simple example here for you to understand what I'm saying. It's just a 2-column table. Of course, you can easily have one that's 3 or even 4 columns. Pay attention to the heading, so don't ignore this information. That can really help you to figure out answers and make sure that they're correct, okay? Again, just like with flowcharts, go with the audio. If you miss one of the answers, don't freak out about it. You might be able to guess it. Just keep going, okay? All right, let's listen to the audio and focus in on these questions and these answers. Again, visualize that you're listening to a group project. Focus on dates and times and tasks, okay? Clearly, that's what you need to do here.
Just got an email from the professor saying the due date for our European History group project has been pushed back to Monday.
Great. That means we'll have the weekend to work on it.
I suppose that's good news, but I don't really want to do any homework on my weekend. I had planned to go away with my girlfriend for some relaxation this weekend.
I suppose that's understandable. Maybe we should just have it done by Friday, the original due date. That gives us today and Thursday to finish it.
We can do that, I think. I'm available tomorrow. How about we spend today planning it, assign tasks to take home with us and do tonight, and then meet tomorrow and put it all together? Does that sound right?
That works for me.
That doesn't work too well for me. My afternoon is very busy. I guess I'll just have to burn the midnight oil tonight.
Okay, so Amarwadi's already got our answers up there. Amarwadi says planning is the word here. Okay, so planning the project today, or plan the project, both word forms work here. Doing the project tonight, and then putting the project together tomorrow. Now, of course, make sure that you know how to spell tomorrow. Ranjit, you would get it wrong. It's just one M, okay? Tomorrow. Double R, but one M, okay? Double R, girls and guys. Know the spelling of today, tonight, tomorrow, yesterday, okay? So that's very, very important. This one, hopefully you were able to catch the word today. The answers came very quickly. It was just one speaker. It was the woman. She says, how about we spend the rest of today planning the project? So this was first, and then came the answer, planning, okay? Then we can do the project tonight, and we can put it all together tomorrow, something along those lines, okay? Again, know the spelling of tomorrow. You don't want to lose easy marks. Planning can be a small p. It's not a, it's just a regular word. It's not a proper noun, so no capitalization there, all right? So pay attention to the information contained. When you're listening for this one, this information is very important clearly. When you're listening for this one, this information is very important clearly. This information is important because you know that once you hear this, you need to get ready for this. So again, practicing IELTS format, sequencing, and timing are critical to getting good band scores, okay? Yes, Naveen, you can write all capital letters, but again, careful with spelling. It's easier to make spelling mistakes when you're writing capital letters. There we have that quiz again in your interactive course when you're using it on our websites or your phone. There's the answers. Planning, tomorrow, you need to know that it's a double N, double R, okay? Spelling does matter. If you spell it wrong, you will get it wrong, okay? You're very welcome, Naveen. All right, so that's the end of that slideshow. Let's quickly jump into the next one. Continue with question type 7. We got a couple more different question types to cover, and then we'll slowly be getting to the end of the listening lessons here. So good on you for bearing with me. All right, so 7th type of question is short answers, all right? Short answers is basically the same as fill in the blanks. It's just the blank is more or less at the end of the sentence, all right? So very similar strategies for this kind of a question as for fill in the blanks. I'm not truly sure why IELTS calls these different kinds of questions. You don't actually have to write a sentence. At most, you'll have to write 3 words, okay? Always pay attention if it's 1, 2, or 3 words. Could be a number and 2 words, all right? Very important to look at the titles for these questions and to look at the information, what is before and after the question. Let's have a look at the question, and then you'll see what I'm talking about here. So here's a typical short answer type question. It says, write no more than 3 words and or a number. So in this one, the question is, what topic would the male student like to write on? I guess, the way that this is different from the fill in the blanks is this is actually a question, okay? In fill in the blanks, it's a statement, and the statement is close to what you hear in the audio, or it's paraphrased from the audio. Here, instead of a statement, you have a question, okay? What's the topic of this question? Anybody? So what topic would the male student like to write on but cannot due to the assignment restrictions? What's the topic of the question, ladies and gentlemen? What's the topic of this question? It's not history, Jubilant James, and it's not school, and it's not academic, and it's not physics. So just like in writing task 2, you have topic and controlling idea. What is the topic here? It's not science, it's not crime. This is kind of a tricky one, what I'm asking you. Yeah, that's right, Jeffrey. Good for you. It's the topic the male student wants to choose. So the topic of this question is actually topic. It's kind of a funny pun here, but the topic is the topic. So the topic is what the student wants the topic to be, okay? The controlling idea is the student's desire and the assignment restrictions, but the focus here is the word topic, okay? So topic can be also information, or another way to say it is subject, okay? Subject is equal to topic, all right? So the topic is topic. It's kind of a weird one, but that's what it is. It's project assignment, sure. I hope that's not too confusing for everybody, that the topic is the topic. So you need to pay attention to the topic of the question. If you're really good, you can also pick out the controlling idea, but it's not as important, okay? For these types of questions, and for other parts of IELTS as well, always use the easiest answer. Because short answers can be up to 3 words, you have to be a little bit quicker with your penmanship. It means you're a little bit quicker with your writing. So you don't want to miss some important information from the audio because you're spending too much time writing down the words. So if you hear the word 3, don't write 3, just write the number 3, okay? So don't write T-H-R-E-E, so don't do that. Instead, write 3. Also, some students make a mistake. They write 3 like this, and they've just written the word tree instead of 3. So don't do that. Pay attention to spelling. Take the easy route. Use the number, okay? And strategy number 3 is a very important one. Again, just reminding you to pay attention to those instructions, all right? Let's listen now to this one. Think about the answer, and then, or try to catch the answer, and then we'll write it up here and discuss it, all right? So here we go. Listen and answer.
Be happy to do half the writing. What topics are we going to choose?
Well, the professor said the topic has to be an event that took place somewhere between 1400 and 1800, so we can't do either of the world wars.
That's too bad. My dad is an expert on the Second World War, and he could have helped me with my part. What are we going to do instead?
All right. So, what is the correct answer for this one? Notice that the topic of the question in the audio is mentioned twice. So you hear the woman and the man use the word topic. That's usually a pretty good indicator that you've chosen the right topic from the question when you hear the word a couple times, okay? So Swati says that the answer here needs to be Second World War. Okay. Now, so far, Charlie Sen has the correct answer. Swati has the correct answer. Suresh, you would get that one wrong. I'll explain why in a second, okay? Yeah, so here we focus on what the male student wants to write about, and it is 3 words in this case, Second World War, okay? Yes, Jubilant James, you can absolutely write the Roman numerals here. So this is probably the most difficult answer. There are some much easier answers. This would take you more time, of course. And this is the name of a war. Of course, as everybody knows, the First World War and the Second World War are both the names of wars. So this is a name, okay? Second World War is the name of the war that took place between 1939 and 1945, okay? First World War is the name of the war that took place between 1914 and 1919. So you have to have a big S, big W, big W. Okay, if you have a small w here or here, then that will be wrong. Okay, both of those will be wrong. Now, the easiest way to answer this, if you've seen it in books, is like this. Okay, World War II. Clearly, this answer is much, much easier than this answer. So this would be your quick, easy answer. Now, there are some other ways. You could do it like this. Okay, that's okay. I've seen it written as World War II like that. This is the safe answer, but you'd probably get it for that one as well. So let me make that clear. That is a big W. So World War II like that. Okay. Or you could even do it like this. Okay, that still makes sense. I've seen it written like that before as well, so that's correct. But again, this is your safest answer, all right? Because that is the common way to write it, okay? Jubilant James, you could write it like that as well, all right? So pay attention to these details when you're focusing on these short answer questions. Again, identify the topic, which in this case is the topic, okay, of the assignment. That can really help you identify what the answer is, all right? So again, in our course, if you're at aehelp.com or gieltshelp.com, these slides look much more beautiful and you get interactive quizzes and so on. We just don't have that ability in the PowerPoint. Here you have it, Second World War. Of course, they give you the difficult version, but you can certainly use the easier versions that I showed you. All right, 2 more types of questions. So one of them is a diagram completion type. This is one that a lot of students have been asking me about. Students over the last couple weeks have asked me about maps. What if I see some kind of a map or a diagram of a building or blueprints on the listening? Those questions really scare me. What should I do with that? How can I approach these so I get the right answer? So maps are a type of diagram, so it's the same idea. In these questions, you usually have to either fill in a blank with a word, or sometimes they give you the choices. You just have to match it with the missing information. Let me show you what I'm talking about here. Okay, so in this case, you have this poster. Let me enlarge that for you a little bit so you can see it more clearly. Just a moment. A little bit tricky with the touch screen. Okay, there we go. So here you have your diagram, okay? So European History Poster Project. So this is some kind of a poster, okay? This is a diagram. It could also be the blueprints of a building. In this case, you're looking at a 3-board poster, okay? So the poster is folded here, and the poster is folded here. So these are the 3 sides, okay? This is one side, this is the center, and then this is the 3rd side here, all right? So you're obviously going to be listening to some audio that gives you information about what goes on the left side of the poster, what goes into the center of the poster, and what goes left side, center, right side. I'm turned around. So left side of the poster, center of the poster, right side of the poster. And in this case as well, they give you the options. Now notice how here they have 6 options, and you're only picking out a couple here. So the answers are Marie Antoinette, French Revolution, Louis XIV. Be familiar with Roman numerals, as somebody just mentioned in the chat. You have Voltaire, you have Napoleon, and then historical figures of the French Revolution. All right, so if I'm looking at this diagram, I know it's a little bit bright just because it's backlit here. So we have 35 blank, and then we have Robespierre. And then in the center, we have 36 blank, and then here we have Louis the 16, and then here we have a blank. I'm always encouraging students to use logic. So if I'm looking at this diagram, I have 3 missing answers, and I have 6 choices. Which ones from here do you think will not be on this project poster? So let's see how well you use your logic. Which one of these, without listening to the audio, do you think will not be on the poster? Okay, logic helps you a lot, and logic is very good for this. So Ghanshyam says F, B, and D will not be on the, sorry about that, my camera keeps cutting out. I'll switch up the cameras for the next class so that doesn't happen. Yeah, you might be right. Why did you choose those ones? Why did you choose those? So what's the logic behind your choices that you don't think will be on the poster? Okay, let me get this back for you here real quick. Okay, so why do you think F is not going to be on there? Why do you think B is not going to be on there? Okay, Ebony says C is already on there. Now, Ebony, you're a little bit off, because notice that this is Louis the 14, and here we have Louis the 16. But you're probably right. Why would we have 2 different kings on there? Might not make sense. Okay, and then Preeti Sinha says that, well, look, these are names. This is a name. This is a name. So I'm guessing, my logic tells me that this, and this are probably going to be names as well. And that's a good logic, okay? IELTS is a test of logic as well. So you're probably right. All right, let's listen and see what the answers are, okay? So you're using your logic. Let's listen and see what those are. Just before we do that, I want to make sure that I didn't miss a strategy there for you. Yeah, I got to talk to you about a couple other points here first. Just a moment. Okay, let's go back to the strategy. So now you know what these diagram questions look like. Visualizing is very important. These are absolutely visual questions, so you have to picture this poster board. You have to see it visually. You have to imagine you're one of the students working on this project and picture the faces of the king and these people on the poster. You'd have those on there for your school project. And then strategy 2, and this is sometimes really difficult in another language. I know that. I empathize with that. I've learned Japanese and I still have trouble with this to this day. I also have trouble with it in Hungarian, but don't give up. Keep practicing. I'm talking about basically prepositions here. So beside, above, next to, between, on, under, all of these prepositions, you have to learn them, and you have to try to be at least 90% accurate using your prepositions in English. When you're asking for directions, it's very important, and for diagram or map kinds of questions, in the listening, as well as the reading, as well as task 1, if you're doing academic writing, it's very important to use these prepositions correctly, okay? So prepositions are really, really, really important. North, south, east, west, Jubilant James, absolutely. If you have a map kind of question, it's important to pay attention to. And then this third one here is what I just showed you. Use your common sense. So use your logic. Logic can help a lot for map types of questions. Check your logic at home when you do these questions to make sure that it's sound logic and that it helps you to get the right answer. Okay, now let's listen and then we'll solve this question. Okay, so pay attention to those prepositions.
I know. How about instead of doing a summary of the French Revolution, we write about some of the people involved instead?
Oh, I like that idea. So who are some of the important people?
Well, there's the King, Louis XVI.
Robespierre was important, I think.
Yes, he was. And of course, Napoleon Bonaparte.
We should have 4 people, so you can each write about 2 people.
How about Marie Antoinette?
Okay, so we have 4 historical figures. Each of you are going to write about 2. Now we have to decide how much we're going to write. Remember, we have to fill up a 3-board poster.
That's a good point about the 3-board poster. Maybe we should do a 5th person, then we can have 2 figures on each side with 1 in the middle.
Good idea. We can make the middle one really important. We'll make that one Napoleon. As for a 5th person, how about Voltaire?
Good. So how about I do the important one on Napoleon and a smaller one on Robespierre?
Okay, and I'll do the other 3.
How long should each topic be?
I'd say 200 words each for the small ones and 450 for the big one on Napoleon.
I think that sounds about right. What do you think about meeting up?
All right, so there you have the answers in the audio. Number 36 was the easiest one. Let's start with that one. So number 36, I see that a lot of you have already put it up there. You caught that one well. And you said, hey, that's going to be Napoleon. So, of course, here you're putting the letter, not the word. So you're putting E into the center. That's Napoleon. Now, the speakers, notice, didn't use the word center. They used what word? So what was the preposition that was used for Napoleon? That's right, Sahil. It was middle. Okay, middle. He said, let's put the really important one in the middle. That's Napoleon. Of course, you need to know middle, left, right, center, and so on, okay? And then for 35, the answer was, I believe, A, Marie Antoinette. That's what they mentioned. They said, let's put Marie Antoinette with Robespierre. So here you didn't really get a preposition, but you got the name Robespierre. So also pay attention, of course, to that information that's given to you in the actual diagram. And then for 37, the answer was D, Voltaire. So the correct answers were 35A, 36E, 37D. Now that is a 3-point question, and you have to have them in the right spaces. So here it definitely matters where you put the answers. So it has to be A, or sorry, it has to be A, E, and D. So that should be your answer set in your answer sheet. Okay? A, E, and D. Okay, so again, with posters, visualize, use your logic, and be very, very cautious of prepositions. In, at, on, above, to the left of, after, before, on the right side, to, in, at, on, okay? All of those words are crucial for these types of questions, okay? Again, in our live course, you go to a quiz, you test your knowledge, and then you go to the last type of questions, okay? So the last type of question that you might see in the listening is what's called a summary completion. Summary completion type questions look like this. Okay, let me enlarge that one a little bit for you. You could probably see that one okay, I think. It's fairly good. So this is a summary type completion question. Topic here, the title is Climate Change, Who Will Step Up? Who will step up means who will be responsible. It's paraphrasing again. And then you have several sentences that create a paragraph together. Summary completion type questions are used both in the listening and in the reading. And usually summary completion questions for the listening, you'll see them in section 4 listening, in the most difficult listening part. The answers come often very quickly or sometimes far apart. And again, you really have to go with the flow, just like with flowchart type questions, okay? So summary completion type questions in some way are like a complicated flowchart, okay? So they don't take out the less relevant middle pieces. They just go nice and smooth, okay? Usually you'll be listening to a professor's lecture on some topic. You really have to follow along. Pay attention to keywords like subjects, humans, okay? Relationship, earth. So these are the words. Remember, in the real IELTS, never circle. Just pay attention to them. Don't waste time on circling. Don't confuse yourself. All right? Pay very special attention to the words that come before and after. Okay? So humans will have to blank their relationship. Okay? So these give you clues about the answer. All right? A lot of different techniques come together to solve these questions. Just like with sentence completion or a short answer, you really have to pay attention to word form, all right? So pay attention to if it's an adjective, a verb, a noun, an adverb, all right? This is an important strategy, all right? Very, very, very important. When you hear the word, so when you think, aha, I got it, that's the answer, okay, I just heard it, I'm going to write that down. When you're listening in the audio for this summary completion type question, don't worry about your spelling. Okay, I've seen students do that where they pause and then they stress about the spelling. They're like, oh, did I spell that right? What's the spelling of that word? Is that 2 R's or is it just one? Wait a second, did the second answer just come? Did I just miss answer number 3? Did I just miss it? So don't worry about the spelling while you're doing this in your question booklet. Worry about the spelling when you transfer the answers to the answer sheet, okay? You have 10 minutes to transfer answers at the end of the listening. This is usually near the end of the listening. So in that 10 minutes, that's when you should check your spelling and make sure it's correct. While you're answering, just write it down as fast as you can. Make sure you can read your own writing. And move on to the next bit of information, okay? All right, strategy number 3 is when you're transferring the answers, then make sure to read the questions from beginning to end and make sure that your answer makes sense, okay? So don't just blindly transfer. I'll go through that one more time, all right? So I'll go through that one more time in a minute. Yes, it's called improv, Jeffrey. On-the-spot acting is improv in English. The one word that you're looking for there is improv. Okay, so here's our question. Let's listen. Here, you're pretty lucky because you have the choices given to you. If you have the choices given, it's good to read over them quickly. But if not, then you'll obviously have to write the words. And in the listening, they're not always given like this. In many cases, you have to write the words in on your own, and you don't have these letter choices, okay? So don't expect to have this extra bit of help. It could be there, but not for sure. Diwash, my name is Adrian, okay? It's Adrian. All right, so listen. Follow with the information, get the right answers. You have 3 questions here. Notice 1, 2, 3. And let's see how well you do.
What's so bad about things getting a little warmer, you may wonder? Weather patterns could become more extreme. The polar ice caps could melt. Sea levels could rise, and incidences of famine due to drought could also increase. On the other hand, places such as northern Canada will likely become more productive for farming and mineral and crude oil extraction. What isn't positive about the permafrost melting is that the ice is a carbon sink, and when it melts, it releases even more carbon into the atmosphere. It's clear that humans will have to change their relationship with the Earth and its resources, but the debate remains over who should be leading that change. Advocates of personal responsibility claim that small personal measures, such as changing light bulbs or riding a bike, can make a significant difference. On the other hand, governments from developing countries are calling for economic reparations to be paid by developed nations because, after all, it is the rich who cause most of the environmental damage and made money from it. The other major group that has profited from our increasing environmental degradation are corporations. Business has always been about production and consumption.
Alright, so the third one there was a little bit quiet. That's okay. Let's focus on 1 and 2. So notice that here you really had to wait for it and pay attention to this title to know when this information is coming. Again, this is taken from a section 4, so it's clearly more difficult. So it's apparent that humans will have to what? What is the answer for number 1? So a lot of you are saying it's F, B, and D. So F means change, right? Such as changing B, light bulbs. And the last one is production and D, consumption. All right. So again, you have the letters. That's fantastic. Make sure that when you're transferring these answers to your answer sheet, whether it's words or letters, read it with the word in context. So you have to go, it is apparent that humans will have to change their relationship with the earth and its resources. Does that make sense? Yes. Is it good? Yes. Is this a missing verb here? Yes, it is. I'm sure that my answer is correct. Some people believe that small measures such as changing light bulbs or riding a bike can make a difference. Excuse me. Getting over a bit of a cold. Noun here. Yes, absolutely. Why? Because we have a verb here. So verb noun or object in this case. Does that make sense? Yes, it does. Light bulb, does it make sense? In fact, if you're very good in English, you can realize that there's parallel grammar here. So changing light bulbs, riding, bike. That's parallel grammar form, so that makes sense. That's good. Okay? Now here, business has always been about production and consumption. Production is making products, so making goods. Providing services. Consumption is about using them. So it's supply and demand. So again, we have two nouns. The word form is correct. And it makes sense. Okay, so check that it makes sense. All right? Okay. So, Diwash, I saw that you threw a few questions up there, but I can't always just cut into the middle of my explanation to answer questions. So Diwash, just send me an email, okay? I'll throw that up at the end of the class, and then you can ask me those questions again. All right. That's the summary completion. Really important to pay attention to this because you're not listening for all the information, just what's relevant to the question. You'll find this type of question usually in listening section 4. Okay? All right, now again, you have a quiz in our online course that follows that set of instructions to check how well you understood what you're doing. And then there's the answers. So change, light bulbs, and consumption. And of course, in the actual course on our websites, you can go back and listen to just these little snippets as well, okay? I'll put up my email here in a second. It's my name, adrian@aehelp.com, okay? So here's some listening question practice instructions near the end of our listening instructions. So play the listening from your curriculum book. This is from our websites. Review all of the strategies for these 9 different kinds of questions. Make sure to print the review test. Practice your listening. Girls and guys, this is very important. Don't just practice your listening in digital form. IELTS is paper-based, so it's really important that you practice your listening for the IELTS with printed exam papers. Please don't just study IELTS on your phone or your computer in digital form and then walk into a paper-based exam a month or 2 months later. That's a really bad idea, all right? So, make sure you print it, listen to the audio, do it as in the real IELTS. Don't get up to eat a pizza halfway through the listening. Try to do a full listening, section 1, 2, 3, 4 in one go. Even do the 10-minute transfer your answer to the answer sheet. And then, of course, as step number 5 here says, do it again with other exams. So with test 2, test 3, okay? I don't have Instagram, Shahil. I'll probably set that up maybe in the future, but I don't have it yet. We haven't needed to use that so far, okay? Now, here's just a quick look at what you need to do when you transfer your answers to the answer sheet. So again, you do section 1 listening, then 2, then 3, then 4. That's about 40 minutes, 40 questions. And then you have 10 minutes to take your answers from your question book. Okay, for the listening, you have 2 booklets. You have the question book, and then you have your answer sheet. You put your answers first in the question booklet, and then in the last 10 minutes, you transfer them to your answer sheet. That's different from the reading section. In the reading section, you write directly into the answer sheet, not into your question booklet. Okay? So that 10 minutes is very useful. Number 1, and this is red here, don't just copy your answers in the 10 minutes, okay? I've seen students do that where they just look at their answer in the answer book and then they copy, kind of like a robot or like a monkey, they copy the answer from the question into the answer. And sometimes it's really simple spelling mistakes, like the word is 3, and then, which you should be using a number anyway, and then they'll have the word tree instead, and just like a mindless computer, they'll just simply transfer the exact same wrong word into the answer booklet. That's really bad. Don't do that. You can easily save yourself a couple marks. In the past, when I was teaching live classes of 30, 40 students, at least half the class would make these silly mistakes during this transfer time. So yeah, don't be monkey see, monkey do, Preeti. Absolutely, okay? We don't want that, right? This is your second chance to make sure that your answers are correct, the order is correct, pay attention to the numbers. 10 minutes, ladies and gentlemen, is a lot of time to transfer 40 answers, okay? That's 15 seconds per question. 15 seconds per question is tons of time to do a second review. Check your spelling, okay, make sure it's correct. Pay attention to especially the vowels. In the past, I've marked a lot of work from students, and most cases, the vowels are where a lot of students make mistakes, the A, E, I, O, U. So pay a special attention to your spelling and your use of vowels in words, okay? So the A, E, I, O, U. All right? Make sure it's an A when it needs to be. So for example, if you have the word week and we're talking about the days of the week not being weak as in the opposite of strong, So make sure that you're not writing it as week, right? So if you're talking about days of the week, then write it like that. If you're talking about the strength of a person, then write it like that. Pay attention to that AE difference between these words, okay? You can check that during this transfer time. Vowel mistakes are very common. That's from my experience, okay? Dealing with difficult questions. This is the very, very last little bit for the listening section. Sometimes students just ask this kind of general question from me. Students will say, "That's right, James. I am in beautiful Budapest, Hungary right now, originally from Canada." That's right, Amar. From beautiful Victoria, West Coast, Canada. That's right. So often students will throw this general question at me. They'll say, well, what about these really hard questions in the listening? Okay, the most important point is don't worry about it. Okay, sometimes students are really unrealistic. They want to get a 9. They're like, my goal is a 9. I want to get a 9.5. I want to get an impossible number. Don't do that. So be realistic. Know what level you're at and expect to do a little bit better, but don't expect to become a master communicator in English in a short time. You will eventually, but that takes practice, okay? Mastering not just English, but communication takes time. So you got to remember that IELTS is testing all the way from somebody that doesn't have any English. If you don't have English, you probably, or if you're a beginner, you probably shouldn't waste your money on IELTS. Just focus on general classes. All the way to 9, and 9 is what's called an expert level of English. It's not a native speaker. It's more a teacher level. Okay, that's the way to think about it. It's an expert communicator. Doctors, lawyers, engineers take IELTS when they get licensed to work in an English-speaking country. They sometimes need band 8, 8.5. I'm sure all of you agree that if your doctor is giving you advice on what to do, you hope that their English is very high level, because of course it's very dangerous if they make mistakes in their communication. Now, to be a bachelor student in university, you don't need to have a doctor's level of English communication, okay? So be realistic again. And so what I'm saying here is, simply put, if you see that there's a very difficult question on the IELTS listening and you missed it, don't worry about it. Move on, okay? Answer quickly, answer logically, move on. Do not keep thinking about difficult questions. Have a second look at them when you're transferring your answers to the answer sheet. And if you miss questions, always guess, okay? You don't get negative marks for wrong answers. So if you have a blank, guess. Worst case scenario, you get it wrong. Best case scenario, you get it right, okay? That's the end of the listening section from our course. We will be continuing next with the reading section and reading section strategies. The reading section has 11 types of questions. We'll talk about active reading. We'll talk about paraphrasing and reading. The key strategies, we'll get into those specific strategies. That's what's coming up next. All right? Remember, know the British accent, know the timing, know the question types, the structures, practice at home. Practice makes perfect. When you're ready, let's move on to the reading section. Girls and guys, thank you so much. I hope some of you followed this these course classes from the beginning. That's it for me for today. Tomorrow, again, members chat. Task 1, pie charts, example essay coming up, same time. And then on Thursday, we continue with the next section of the course, which is reading. Thank you so much. I hope you took away some valuable information from this class. You all have beautiful minds, and you all will become expert English speakers and communicators, and through that reach success in life and love and everything else. So keep it up. Never give up. Communication is the foundation for a good life. I strongly believe that. Much love to everybody. Practice your listening at home. If you have any questions, send me an email. I'll show you that information here real quick. Remember, these classes are coming from our website, so if you really want the premium, beautiful course that works on your laptop and computer, join us at aehelp.com for academic IELTS, gieltshelp.com for general IELTS. And then if you have a question, there's my email again. If you missed it in the chat, it's adrian@aehelp.com. All right? Our lessons are not in PDF, Doogie. Our lessons are interactive, okay? They're much, much more advanced than just simple PDFs. Goodbye and good night, everyone. See you tomorrow.